The colony ship Mayflower drifted through deep space, its hull reflecting the distant light of stars. Inside, 3,000 colonists slept in their quarters or worked at their stations, dreaming of the new world that waited for them. Captain Marcus Hayes stood on the bridge, watching the navigation displays with tired eyes. He had been awake for 16 hours, but sleep could wait. They were 3 months into their journey to New Terra, and everything had gone smoothly until now. Lisa Chen sat at the communications station, her fingers moving across the controls. She was young, only 28, but she knew her job well. The solar storm had appeared on their sensors 2 hours ago, and it was getting stronger. The radiation was interfering with their long-range communications, turning their signals into useless noise. "Captain, I'm still getting interference," Lisa said, frustration clear in her voice. "I can't get a clear signal to the relay stations." Marcus walked over to her station and looked at the readings. The storm was massive, larger than anything they had expected in this region of space. "Can you boost the signal strength?" "I can try switching to the military emergency channels," Lisa replied. "They use different frequencies. The interference might be less." "Do it," Marcus said. "We need to let Earth know we're running behind schedule." Lisa's fingers moved across the controls, adjusting frequencies and power levels. She activated the military channels, channels that colony ships rarely used. The signal strength increased immediately. She smiled, relief washing over her. "That's better. I'm getting through now." What Lisa did not know was that the military emergency channels carried a different protocol. When she activated them, the ship's computer automatically flagged the transmission as urgent. It broadcast their identification codes, their exact location, and their destination. The signal went out in all directions, powerful and clear, cutting through the solar storm like a knife. Jake Morrison, the chief engineer, climbed up from the lower decks and entered the bridge. His hands were covered in grease, and he looked exhausted. "The engines are running hot because of the storm radiation," he reported. "Nothing dangerous yet, but I'm keeping an eye on it." "Good work, Jake," Marcus said. He turned back to the main view screen, watching the storm's radiation patterns. In a few hours, they would be past it, and everything would return to normal. 15 light-years away, a Zrath warship picked up the transmission. The vessel was one of 5 in a hunting pack, searching for easy targets. The Zrath were a predatory species, tall and covered in thick scales. They had built an empire on conquest and slavery, taking weaker species and selling them across the galaxy. Commander Vector stood in his command chamber, his yellow eyes studying the transmission data. His translator converted the human signal into something he could understand. A colony ship, lightly armed, full of civilians. His mouth opened, showing rows of sharp teeth. This was exactly what they had been searching for. "Analyze this species," Vector ordered his crew. "Tell me what we know about humans." The Zrath database held very little information. Humans were expanding into space, but slowly. They had a few colonies and trading posts. Their military seemed small and focused on defense. The database listed them as non-aggressive, with no major conflicts reported. "They appear weak, Commander," one of his officers reported. "Their expansion is slow. They avoid confrontation with other species." Vector studied the data more carefully. The human home world was called Earth, located in a system rich with resources. The colony ship was heading to establish a new settlement. 3,000 humans, mostly families and scientists. Minimal weapons. Perfect prey. "Set course to intercept," Vector commanded. "We will take this ship and its cargo. These humans will bring a good price in the slave markets." The Zrath warships changed direction, their faster-than-light drives engaging. They would reach the colony ship in 3 weeks. The same transmission reached another ship, this one much closer. An Earth Defense Force patrol vessel was conducting routine sweeps 2 systems away when the emergency signal arrived. The captain immediately recognized the military emergency protocols and forwarded the transmission to Earth Command. Back on the Mayflower, Lisa finished her communication report. "Message sent, Captain. Earth should receive our status update in about a week." Marcus nodded, satisfied. "Good. Now let's focus on getting through this storm." The bridge crew continued their work, unaware that their simple transmission had set events in motion. Amy Rodriguez, the colony administrator, entered the bridge carrying a data pad. She was in her early 40s, with short dark hair and a professional manner. "Captain, I need to review the landing site preparations with you." "Of course," Marcus said. He followed Amy to the small conference room off the bridge. They spent the next hour discussing the colony's layout, resource allocation, and construction priorities. Amy had organized everything down to the smallest detail. New Terra would be humanity's 15th colony world, and she was determined to make it successful. In the security office, Kevin Park reviewed the duty roster. He was the ship's security chief, responsible for maintaining order among 3,000 colonists. It was usually a quiet job. The colonists were good people, families and scientists who had volunteered for this journey. The most serious incident in 3 months had been a dispute about hydroponics space. Kevin was 30 years old, a former police officer from San Francisco. He had joined the colony mission looking for adventure and a fresh start. His small security team consisted of 12 people, all trained in basic law enforcement. They carried stun weapons and practiced basic self-defense. None of them expected to face any real danger. The ship continued through space, leaving the solar storm behind. In the crew quarters, families ate dinner together. Children played in the recreation areas. Scientists worked in their laboratories, preparing for the research they would conduct on New Terra. Engineers maintained the ship's systems. Medical staff checked on pregnant colonists and treated minor injuries. Everything was normal. Everything was peaceful. 3 weeks passed in ordinary routine. The colonists aboard the Mayflower continued their preparations for landing on New Terra. Children attended classes. Adults worked their shifts. The ship moved steadily through space, its course unchanged. Marcus was reviewing supply manifests when the alarms started screaming. He jumped from his chair and ran to the bridge. Lisa was already at her station, her face pale as she stared at her sensors. "Captain, we have 5 ships dropping out of faster-than-light speed," she reported, her voice shaking. "They're surrounding us." Marcus looked at the main view screen. 5 vessels appeared, larger than the Mayflower and bristling with weapon ports. They moved with military precision, cutting off every escape route. His stomach dropped. These were warships, not traders or patrol vessels. "Hail them," Marcus ordered. "Ask them their intentions." Lisa opened a channel. Before she could speak, the view screen changed. A large reptilian face appeared, yellow eyes staring at them with cold hunger. The creature's scales were dark green, and its mouth was full of sharp teeth. "Human vessel, you are now property of the Zrath Empire," the alien said through a translator. "Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in the death of all aboard." Marcus felt his heart pounding. He looked around the bridge at his crew. They were civilians, not soldiers. The ship had 2 small defense guns meant for clearing space debris, nothing that could fight a warship. He activated the ship-wide communications. "All hands, this is the captain. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. Security teams to your stations. Everyone else, get to the safe rooms. This is not a drill." Kevin was already moving through the corridors with his security team. They had 12 people total, armed with stun weapons designed for controlling unruly colonists, not fighting alien warriors. He knew it was not enough, but it was all they had. The Zrath warships opened fire. The first shots were precise, disabling the Mayflower's engines without destroying the ship. The colony vessel shook violently. Lights flickered and died, then emergency power kicked in. In the engine room, Jake held on to a railing as systems exploded around him. "Engine room to bridge," Jake shouted into his communicator. "We're dead in space. Main power is gone." On the view screen, Commander Vector smiled, showing all his teeth. "Smart choice, humans. Now open your airlocks or we will cut our way inside." Marcus clenched his fists. Opening the airlocks meant letting armed enemies into his ship. Refusing meant they would breach the hull and possibly kill colonists in the process. He had 3,000 lives depending on his decision. "Open airlock 7, Marcus said quietly. "But tell Kevin to be ready." The Zarath boarding parties entered the ship, wearing environmental suits. They found Earth's atmosphere uncomfortable, with too much oxygen and unusual pressure. 50 Zarath warriors moved through the corridors in groups of 5, their weapons ready. The first group reached a junction where Kevin and 3 of his security officers waited. The humans opened fire with their stun weapons. The electrical charges hit the Zarath suits, but did little damage. The aliens returned fire with plasma weapons. Kevin dove behind a corner as the wall behind him exploded. He looked at his weapon, knowing it was useless. He dropped it and grabbed a heavy metal pipe from an equipment locker. His team did the same. If their weapons could not help them, they would fight with their hands. The Zarath warriors rounded the corner, expecting to find defeated enemies. Instead, Kevin swung the pipe with all his strength, hitting the lead warrior in the head. The alien's helmet cracked. Kevin hit it again, then again. The Zarath fell. The other security officers attacked with pipes, wrenches, and their fists. The Zarath were larger and stronger, but they were shocked by the human aggression. They had conquered dozens of species. None of them had fought like this. Most prey species surrendered or ran. These humans attacked. One Zarath warrior grabbed a security officer and lifted him off the ground. The human bit the alien's hand through the suit, drawing blood. The Zarath screamed and dropped him. The officer rolled, grabbed a broken piece of metal, and stabbed upward into the warrior's abdomen. Kevin and his team killed 3 Zarath before plasma fire cut them down. Kevin fell, his chest burned, but he was still breathing. He had bought time. He had shown the aliens that humans would not surrender easily. In other parts of the ship, similar fights broke out. Tyler Bennett, a young agricultural specialist, used fertilizer chemicals to create an acid that ate through Zarath armor. Danny Cooper, only 16 years old, was helping evacuate children when Zarath warriors entered the corridor. The boy grabbed a fire suppression system control and activated it. Foam flooded the corridor, blinding the aliens. Danny led the children through a maintenance shaft, then sealed the hatch and triggered the corridor's emergency atmosphere purge. The Zarath warriors died in the vacuum. Michelle Torres, the medical officer, defended her medical bay with a laser scalpel and her bare hands. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, but when a Zarath warrior tried to take her wounded patients, she attacked with fury. She cut the warrior's throat before 2 more aliens stunned her. The fighting lasted 40 minutes. The Zarath expected it to take 10. They lost 18 warriors, more than they had lost in their last 5 conquests combined. The colonists fought with tools, chemicals, and improvised weapons. They used their knowledge of the ship to create traps and ambushes, but numbers and superior weapons won. The Zarath eventually overwhelmed the defenders. They gathered the surviving colonists in the cargo bay, forcing them to their knees. Marcus was brought before Commander Vector, his hands bound. "You are a fool," Vector said, studying the human captain. "You fought when you should have surrendered. Now many of your people are dead." "We defended ourselves," Marcus replied, meeting the alien's eyes. "We didn't ask for this fight." Vector struck Marcus across the face, drawing blood. "You are property now. Speak only when given permission." The commander walked among the kneeling colonists, examining them like livestock. He was pleased despite the resistance. Humans were surprisingly durable. Their bodies were dense and muscular. They healed quickly. They would make excellent slaves for harsh environments. Medical teams, examine the captives, Vector ordered. I want full biological reports. The rest of you, secure this ship. We take it with us. Zrath medics began scanning the colonists. What they found disturbed them. Human bone structure was incredibly dense, designed to support high gravity. Their muscle tissue was packed with fibers that suggested strength far beyond what their size indicated. They had redundant organs, cardiovascular systems that could maintain function even with major damage, and immune systems that were aggressively defensive. One medic approached Vector with a data pad. Commander, these readings suggest the humans evolved on a high-gravity world with significant environmental dangers. What classification? Vector asked. At least Class 10, possibly higher. These are Deathworld adaptations. Vector looked at the data, then dismissed it with a gesture. Impossible. Deathworld species do not travel in poorly armed colony ships. They do not surrender. These humans are weak. Their ship had no weapons. They lost this fight. The medic said nothing more, but he did not agree. He had examined the dead Zrath warriors. The humans had fought with primitive weapons and killed trained soldiers. That was not weakness. That was terrifying capability restrained only by lack of proper equipment. In the cargo bay, Lisa worked at a damaged communications panel. A Zrath guard watched her. But he did not understand human technology. She had told him she was fixing life support, and he believed her. Her fingers moved carefully, routing power from a backup system. She sent out one final message, a simple emergency beacon with their location and situation. It was all she could do before the guard noticed and pulled her away from the panel. She did not know if anyone would receive it. She only knew she had tried. Marcus knelt among his people, watching the Zrath prepare to move them to the alien ships. His face hurt where Vector had struck him, but he barely noticed. He was thinking about Kevin, about the others who had died fighting. They had been civilians, people who signed up to build a colony, not wage war. Yet they had fought like soldiers. Admiral Ryan Mitchell stood in the command center of Earth Defense Force headquarters, his jaw tight as he read the reports. He was 52 years old, a career military officer who had served in space for 30 years. He had seen combat, piracy, and diplomatic incidents. This was different. This was an attack on civilians. "How long ago did we receive the first transmission?" he asked. Commander Kate Sullivan looked up from her tactical display. She was 38, sharp-minded and precise. "The accidental military emergency signal came in 21 days ago. The distress beacon arrived 6 hours ago. We estimate the attack happened 3 days after the first signal. 3,000 colonists," Mitchell said quietly. "Families, scientists, teachers, children." Nicole Barnes, the intelligence analyst, brought up data on the main screen. She was young, only 31, but she was one of the best in her field. "The enemy identified themselves as the Zrath Empire. I've been going through our databases and cross-referencing with Galactic Council records." "What did you find?" Mitchell asked. "The Zrath are a predatory species that operates a slave trade empire," Nicole explained. "They've been doing this for over 200 years. They target weak or newly spacefaring species, capture them, and sell them. The Galactic Council knows about it but does nothing because the Zrath are careful to avoid the major powers." Mitchell's hands formed fists. "They attacked humans. That makes them our problem now." Kate brought up a star chart. "The Mayflower's last known position is here, 17 light years from Earth. We can assemble a response fleet and reach them in 4 days if we push our faster-than-light drives." "Do it," Mitchell ordered. "I want 3 destroyers, 2 carriers, and all available support vessels. Pull ships from the inner system patrols if you have to." Nicole cleared her throat. "Admiral, there's something else you should know. I accessed the Galactic Council's database on Earth. The Zrath don't know what they've done." Mitchell turned to her. "Explain." Nicole brought up Earth's classification data. "Most spacefaring species evolved on what we call garden worlds. Low gravity, stable climates, few predators, and abundant resources. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. That's one of the highest danger ratings in the known galaxy. Kate leaned forward, reading the data. Gravity 1.3 times galactic standard. Atmospheric pressure and oxygen content higher than 90% of inhabited worlds. Extreme weather patterns including hurricanes, tornadoes, and blizzards. Active tectonic plates causing earthquakes and volcanoes. Aggressive megafauna that hunted our ancestors. High radiation exposure from our sun. And we adapted to all of it, Nicole added. Every human carries those adaptations. Dense bones to handle the gravity. Powerful muscles to move in heavy atmosphere, cardiovascular systems that can function at extreme altitudes or depths, immune systems aggressive enough to fight diseases that would kill most species, pain tolerance far above galactic average, and aggression levels that evolution built into us because we had to fight to survive. Mitchell looked at the data, then at his officers. The Zrath think they captured prey. They don't realize they've caught predators. Kate smiled grimly. They're about to learn the difference. Lieutenant Alex Carter and his squadron mates gathered in the carrier's briefing room. He was 27, one of the youngest fighter pilots in the fleet, but he had never seen actual combat. Most of his missions had been patrols and training exercises. Today would be different. The briefing officer displayed the tactical situation. The enemy has 5 warships surrounding the colony vessel. Intelligence suggests they're preparing to transport the colonists to their slave markets. Your mission is to disable their weapons and engines. Leave them dead in space. One of the pilots raised his hand. What about the colonists on board? Won't they be in danger during the attack? That's why you'll be using precision strikes, the briefing officer replied. Target only the Zrath vessels. Our Marines will board and secure the colonists once the enemy ships are neutralized. Alex studied the Zrath ship designs. They were larger than human destroyers but appeared to rely heavily on energy shields. Their weapons were plasma-based, powerful but slow to recharge. The design suggested they were used to fighting weaker opponents who couldn't fight back effectively. They're not expecting us, Alex said. They probably think all humans are like the colonists, peaceful, lightly armed. The briefing officer nodded. That's correct. Intelligence intercepts suggest the Zrath have no idea Earth is a death world. They think humans are easy prey. We're going to show them how wrong they are. The pilots left the briefing room and headed to their fighters. Alex climbed into his cockpit, running through pre-flight checks. His fighter was sleek and fast, designed for both space and atmospheric combat. It carried railguns, missiles, and electronic warfare systems. The Zrath had never fought anything like it. On the flagship destroyer, Mitchell watched his fleet assemble. 3 destroyers formed the main attack force. 2 carriers held the fighters and marine units. Support vessels carried medical teams, engineers, and supplies. It was not the largest fleet Earth had, but it was enough. All ships report ready, Kate announced. Take us to faster than light speed, Mitchell ordered. Time to bring our people home. The fleet jumped, leaving Earth's solar system behind. In 4 days, they would reach the Mayflower. Mitchell spent that time reviewing everything they knew about the Zrath Empire. It was not pleasant reading. The Zrath had conquered 47 species over 2 centuries. They operated slave processing facilities on 12 worlds. Their economy was built entirely on the suffering of others. They had never faced serious military opposition because they were careful to attack only weak targets. They're bullies, Nicole said, sitting across from Mitchell in his office. They pick on species that can't fight back. When they encounter someone strong, they retreat. Will they retreat from us? Mitchell asked. Nicole shook her head. Not at first. They won't understand what they're facing until it's too late. They'll think their numbers and weapons give them an advantage. By the time they realize their mistake, we'll have destroyed their fleet. Mitchell looked out at the stars rushing past. Good. I want them to understand something very clearly. Humans don't negotiate with slavers. We don't accept losses, and we never abandon our own. On the colony ship, life under Zrath control was harsh. The aliens had separated the colonists into groups based on their physical capabilities. Strong workers like Jake and Tyler were placed in one section. Medical personnel like Michelle were in another. Families with children were kept together but under heavy guard. Marcus and Amy worked with Kevin to organize quiet resistance. Kevin had survived his wounds, though barely. The Zrath had treated him because they considered him valuable property. He used his recovery time to map out the guard rotations and identify weak points in their security. "They're arrogant," Kevin whispered during a brief moment when the guards were not watching. "They think we're defeated. They expect us to behave like the other species they've conquered." "How long until they move us to their ships?" Amy asked. 3 more days, Marcus replied. "They're stripping the Mayflower of anything valuable. Once they're done, they'll transport us to a processing facility." "We need to be ready," Kevin said. "If there's any chance for escape, any opening at all, we take it." Danny Cooper sat with a group of younger colonists, all of them teenagers. They were in a separate holding area, away from their parents. The Zrath considered young humans particularly valuable, easy to train and with long working lives ahead of them. "I'm scared," one girl whispered. Danny nodded. He was scared too. But he remembered how he had saved the children during the attack. He remembered the Zrath warriors dying when he purged the corridor's atmosphere. "We're still alive," he said quietly. "That means we can still fight." The Zrath medical teams continued their examinations. The data they gathered troubled them more each day. Human healing rates were remarkable. Injuries that should have taken weeks to recover from healed in days. The human immune system attacked any foreign substance with overwhelming force. Their bodies could adapt to different gravity levels, temperature ranges, and atmospheric conditions. One medical officer brought his concerns to Commander Vector. "Commander, I believe we should reconsider our assessment of these humans. All evidence points to them being a Deathworld species. Their physiology, their aggression, their refusal to submit properly. These are not characteristics of prey." Vector turned his yellow eyes on the medic. "They surrendered. They are locked in holding areas. They are beaten. How can you call them anything but prey?" "They fought us with tools and improvised weapons," the medic argued. "They killed 18 of our warriors. No prey species has ever done that." 18 warriors died because we underestimated their desperation," Vector said dismissively. "Nothing more. These humans will be processed and sold like all the others. Do not question my judgment again." The medic left, but he was not convinced. He had seen the look in human eyes. It was not the look of prey. It was the look of predators waiting for an opportunity. Mitchell's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of the system. They had arrived. Kate brought up the tactical display, showing the 5 Zrath warships surrounding the colony vessel. "All ships to stealth mode," Mitchell ordered. "Use the asteroid field for cover. I want to get close before they know we're here." The first wave of human fighters screamed out of the darkness like hunting hawks. Alex pushed his throttle forward, breaking stealth as his squadron mates spread into attack formation. His targeting computer locked onto the nearest Zrath warship's weapon systems. He did not hesitate. He did not warn them. He simply fired. Railgun rounds tore through space at incredible velocity, punching through the Zrath ship's shields like they were paper. The shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles moving at a fraction of light speed. Explosions rippled across the warship's hull as weapon ports shattered and power conduits exploded. The Zrath bridge crews barely had time to register the attack before the second wave hit. Human destroyers emerged from the asteroid field, their massive railguns firing in coordinated volleys. The kinetic bombardment was devastating. One Zrath warship lost its entire starboard side in the first 3 seconds of combat. Commander Vector stood on his command deck, staring in shock at his displays. Where had these ships come from? His sensors showed 3 human destroyers, 2 carriers, and multiple support vessels. This was a military fleet, not a rescue mission. These were warships built for combat. "Return fire!" Vector screamed. "All weapons! Engage the human fleet!" The Zrath ships turned their plasma cannons toward the attacking forces, but the human ships were already moving. They did not fight like any enemy the Zrath had encountered. There was no posturing, no demands for surrender, no warning shots. The humans simply attacked with cold efficiency. Kate Sullivan coordinated the battle from her tactical station on Mitchell's flagship. She had planned this assault down to the second. "Fighter squadrons, continue targeting their weapons. Destroyers, focus fire on their engines. I want these ships dead in space." Alex and his squadron weaved through plasma fire, their fighters too fast and agile for the Zrath targeting systems. He launched a spread of missiles at a warship's engine array. The missiles used predictive tracking, adjusting their course to intercept even as the enemy ship tried to maneuver. All 6 missiles hit within a half-second of each other. The Zrath ship's engines exploded in a brilliant flash. On the second Zrath warship, the captain ordered an emergency faster-than-light jump. His crew tried to activate the drive, but human railgun fire had already destroyed the necessary systems. They were trapped. Mitchell watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The battle had been going for 3 minutes. 2 Zrath ships were crippled. One was venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches, and the remaining 2 were trying desperately to protect themselves. Not a single human ship had been damaged. "This is the Zrath Empire's military," Kate asked, almost disappointed. "I expected more of a challenge." "They're used to fighting species that can't fight back," Mitchell replied. "They've never faced a real military force." On the colony ship, Marcus heard the sounds of explosions through the hull. The Zrath guards were shouting in their language, confusion and fear clear in their voices. One guard ran past without even looking at the human prisoners. Something was happening outside, something that had the aliens terrified. Kevin moved to the door of their holding area. The lock had been hastily installed, not designed for a proper prison. He pulled a thin piece of metal from his boot, a tool he had hidden since the attack. "Now's our chance. Whatever's happening out there, it's our opportunity." He worked on the lock while Amy and Marcus gathered the others. In 30 seconds, Kevin had the door open. The colonists poured out into the corridor, finding it empty. The Zrath guards had abandoned their posts. "Find anything we can use as weapons," Marcus ordered, "and find the other holding areas. We're getting everyone out." In the medical bay, Michelle was treating a young colonist's arm when the ship shook violently. The Zrath guard standing by the door looked panicked. He spoke into his communicator, listening to the response, then ran out of the room without a word. Michelle did not waste time wondering why. She gathered her medical staff. "We need to prepare for casualties. If there's a battle happening, people will be hurt." Tyler Bennett and a group of agricultural specialists broke out of their holding area using a chemical mixture Tyler had created from cleaning supplies. The acid ate through the lock in seconds. They armed themselves with tools and headed toward the cargo bay, where they knew weapons and equipment might be stored. Danny and the other teenagers found their door already unlocked. The Zrath guard, who was supposed to be watching them, had left in a panic. Danny led his group toward the safe rooms where the youngest children had been kept. They had to protect the little ones. Outside, the battle was nearly over. The third Zrath warship tried to flee at sublight speed, but human fighters swarmed it. Alex launched his last 2 missiles, targeting the ship's bridge. The missiles penetrated the hull and detonated inside the command center. The warship went dark, drifting without power or guidance. Commander Vector realized his fleet was lost. 4 ships destroyed or disabled in less than 8 minutes. His own vessel was the only one still capable of fighting, and it was surrounded by human warships. He made a desperate decision. "Activate the self-destruct system," Vector ordered. If we cannot have these humans, no one will. His crew stared at him in horror. The self-destruct would destroy not just their ship, but the colony vessel as well. 3,000 human prisoners would die. It was a final act of spite from a commander who could not accept defeat. But Kate had been monitoring Zrath communications. She saw the power spike in the flagship's reactor. "They're going to self-destruct," she reported. "All ships concentrate fire on the Zrath flagship. Target their reactor." Every human ship fired at once. Railgun rounds, missiles, and laser fire converged on the Zrath flagship. The combined assault overwhelmed the ship's defenses. The reactor was pierced before it could reach critical mass. The explosion was contained within the Zrath vessel, destroying it, but leaving the colony ship intact. Silence fell across the battlefield. The Zrath fleet was gone, destroyed or disabled. The colony ship Mayflower floated among the wreckage, its hull scarred but intact. "Launch Marine boarding parties," Mitchell ordered. "Secure that ship and recover our people." Marine dropships launched from the carriers, their hulls armored and bristling with weapons. They approached the Mayflower carefully, ready for resistance. Inside the colony ship, the Marines found chaos. Colonists and Zrath were fighting hand-to-hand throughout the corridors. Kevin and his group had armed themselves with Zrath weapons taken from dead guards. When the Marines breached the hull, Kevin almost fired before recognizing the Earth Defense Force insignia on their armor. "Stand down!" the Marine commander shouted. "We're here to rescue you!" Kevin lowered his weapon, relief flooding through him. "About time you showed up," he said with a tired smile. The Marines spread through the ship, hunting down the remaining Zrath. The aliens were trapped between armed Marines and enraged colonists. Most surrendered quickly. Those who did not were cut down without mercy. Marcus was leading a group toward the bridge when they encountered a squad of Marines. The Marine sergeant looked at the colonists, noting their improvised weapons and determined expressions. "Sir, we need you to let us handle this." "This is my ship," Marcus replied. "We're helping." The sergeant nodded, recognizing the tone. These were not helpless victims. These were fighters. "Then stay behind us and follow our lead." They reached the bridge together. Vector's second-in-command stood there with 5 remaining warriors, holding Lisa Chen as a hostage. The Zrath officer pressed a blade to her throat. "Stay back or she dies!" the alien shouted. The Marine commander assessed the situation. "Lower your weapons, and you will be treated according to military law. Harm the prisoner, and we will kill all of you." The Zrath officer looked around at the Marines, at their weapons, at their cold expressions. He saw no mercy in their eyes. He saw the same thing his medical officer had warned about. These humans were not prey. They were predators. He lowered his blade. Lisa broke free and ran to Marcus. The Marines secured the Zrath prisoners, binding them efficiently. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out. The colonists and Marines worked together, clearing each section, securing each area. Michelle's medical bay became a triage center for wounded humans. Tyler and his agricultural specialists used their chemical knowledge to help disable Zrath weapons. Danny found the children's safe room sealed and protected. The youngest colonists had survived unharmed. He sat down in the corridor, exhausted and shaking as the fear finally caught up to him. A Marine medic checked him over, speaking quietly and calmly until the boy stopped shaking. Admiral Mitchell boarded the Mayflower 3 hours after the battle ended. He walked through corridors marked by plasma burns and blood. He saw colonists helping Marines. He saw families reuniting. He saw people who had been through hell but were still standing. Marcus met him on the bridge. The colony captain's face was bruised and his uniform was torn, but he stood straight. "Admiral Mitchell, thank you for coming for us." Mitchell shook his hand. "Captain Hayes, we don't leave our people behind. Ever." "How did you know where to find us?" Marcus asked. Your communications officer sent out a distress beacon during the attack. We picked it up and came as fast as we could. Marcus looked at Lisa, who was working at her station with tears streaming down her face. She had saved them. Her quick thinking and courage had brought Earth's military to their rescue. Kate Sullivan arrived on the bridge carrying a data pad. Admiral, we've secured all remaining Zrath prisoners, 63 total. We also found their database. It contains information about their entire slave trade network. Mitchell's expression hardened. Send that data to Earth Command. I think it's time the Zrath Empire learned what happens when you make humans angry. Alex and his squadron landed back on their carrier to cheers from the crew. They had performed flawlessly, not a single human casualty in the battle. Alex climbed out of his fighter, exhausted but proud. His squadron mates gathered around, replaying the battle, talking about the Zrath ships exploding. Did you see how fast their shields failed? One pilot laughed. They weren't ready for kinetic weapons. The medical bay aboard Admiral Mitchell's flagship was full of activity. Doctors moved between beds, treating colonists who had been injured during the Zrath attack. Michelle Torres walked among them, helping where she could. She was still officially a patient herself, recovering from the fight in the Mayflower's medical bay, but she refused to rest. You should be in bed, a Navy doctor told her. Michelle shook her head. These are my people. I need to help them. The doctor looked at her bruised face and bandaged hands, then nodded with respect. At least let me check your injuries first. 2 days after the battle, the full extent of what had happened became clear. 0 human military casualties. 4 Zrath warships completely destroyed. 1 captured intact with all its systems and databases. 63 Zrath prisoners secured. 3,000 colonists rescued. It was not just a victory, it was a statement. Nicole Barnes worked through the captured Zrath database, her eyes widening with each discovery. The information detailed 200 years of slave trade operations, processing facilities on 12 worlds, lists of species they had conquered, and locations of their bases. She brought her findings to Admiral Mitchell. This is bigger than we thought, Nicole said, displaying the data. The Zrath Empire has been doing this to dozens of species. Some of them are still in captivity. There are processing facilities holding thousands of slaves right now. Mitchell read the reports, his jaw tightening. Send this to Earth Command. The Galactic Council needs to see this too. The Council already knows, sir, Nicole replied. According to these files, the Zrath have been careful to avoid major powers. The Council considers it an internal matter for weaker species to resolve. Not anymore, Mitchell said. The Zrath attacked humans. That makes it our matter now. A Galactic Council diplomatic vessel arrived in the system 3 days later. Ambassador Laura Kim stepped onto Mitchell's flagship, her expression carefully neutral. She was a career diplomat, experienced in handling conflicts between species. She had been sent to assess the situation and report back to the Council. Admiral Mitchell, Laura said, extending her hand. I'm here to investigate this incident. Mitchell shook her hand. Ambassador, I'll provide you with full access to our records and the Zrath prisoners. Laura spent the next 12 hours reviewing everything. Combat footage showed the brief battle, the Zrath fleet being destroyed with overwhelming force. Interviews with colonists revealed the attack, the resistance, and the rescue. Medical reports detailed injuries consistent with plasma weapons and physical assault. The captured Zrath database provided context for the Empire's operations. She also met with the colonists themselves. Danny Cooper told her about defending the children, his young voice steady as he described purging the corridor's atmosphere. Tyler Bennett explained how he used agricultural chemicals to fight the aliens. Marcus Hayes showed her the bridge, pointing out where Zrath warriors had threatened his crew. You're all so calm about this, Laura said, disturbed by how matter-of-factly they discussed the violence. You fought trained warriors with tools and bare hands. We didn't have a choice, Marcus replied. They attacked us. We defended ourselves. Laura had dealt with many species over her career. She had seen victims of violence, people traumatized by combat. The human colonists seemed different. They were upset, certainly. They mourned their dead. But they were not broken. They spoke about the fight like it was a natural response to danger. Commander Kate Sullivan gave Laura a briefing on human military capabilities. The Zrath made a fundamental error, Kate explained. They assumed humans were weak because our colony ships aren't heavily armed. They didn't realize that humans prefer peaceful expansion, but maintain a strong military for protection. How strong? Laura asked. Kate brought up a display showing Earth's military structure. Fleet deployments, base locations, ship counts. Laura's eyes widened. This is a military force capable of projecting power across dozens of systems. Why do you keep it so quiet? Because we don't want to fight, Kate replied. We prefer trade and diplomacy, but when someone attacks our civilians, we respond with everything we have. Laura met with Admiral Mitchell in his office. A war correspondent named Brandon Wells was also there, reviewing footage for his report. He had been embedded with the fleet during the rescue. Ambassador, I want to make something very clear, Mitchell said. The Zrath Empire attacked human civilians. They killed 18 people and wounded dozens more. They plan to sell our people as slaves. This cannot stand. What are you proposing? Laura asked carefully. Earth is demanding the immediate release of all slaves held by the Zrath Empire, Mitchell stated. They will dismantle their slave trade operations. They will compensate the species they've wronged. And they will surrender their military fleet for decommissioning. Laura sat back, stunned. Admiral, those are terms you dictate to a defeated enemy. The Zrath Empire is vast. You destroyed one fleet, but they have more. Mitchell's expression did not change. Then we'll destroy those too. Every ship, every base, every processing facility will keep going until they surrender or until there's nothing left. You're talking about war, Laura said. They started the war when they attacked the Mayflower, Mitchell replied. We're just finishing it. Brandon Wells listened to this exchange, recording everything. His report would go out to every news network in human space and beyond. The galaxy needed to understand what had happened here. Laura visited the brig where the Zrath prisoners were held. The aliens sat in cells designed for human criminals, looking diminished and defeated. She spoke with a Zrath medical officer who had been captured. Why did you attack the human colony ship? Laura asked through a translator. We thought they were weak, the Zrath replied. Our databases had minimal information about humans. They seemed non-aggressive. Their ships were lightly armed. We believed they would be easy to conquer. Did you know humans evolved on a death world? The medic's eyes showed what might have been fear. We discovered that during our medical examinations. I tried to warn Commander Vector, but he refused to listen. He said Deathworld species don't surrender. These humans did surrender, Laura pointed out. To save their people, the medic said. They fought first. They killed 18 of our warriors with primitive weapons. Then they surrendered to prevent more deaths. But they never stopped being dangerous. I saw it in their eyes. They were waiting, planning. When your military arrived, the colonists rose up again. They fought alongside your Marines like they had been training together for years. Laura left the brig disturbed by the implications. She had dealt with many conflicts. But this was different. The humans had not just defended themselves. They had demonstrated military capability that exceeded most species in the galaxy, and they had done it to protect civilians. 2 weeks after the battle, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Laura presented her findings. Council members from dozens of species listened as she described the attack, the rescue, and Earth's demands. The humans are being unreasonable, a council member argued. They want to dismantle an entire empire over one incident. Laura shook her head. The Zrath Empire has been capturing and enslaving species for 200 years. Earth has provided evidence of thousands of victims still in captivity. The humans are not being unreasonable. They're being moral. And they have the military power to enforce their demands, another council member added. We've reviewed the combat footage. The Zrath fleet was destroyed in 8 minutes. The humans didn't even take casualties. The debate continued for hours. Finally, the council voted. They would support Earth's demands. The Zrath Empire would be given 30 days to comply or face military action from a coalition of forces. The Zrath government received the ultimatum and faced a choice. They could fight humanity and likely face destruction, or they could surrender and dismantle their empire. They chose survival. Within 30 days, processing facilities were opened, slaves were freed, and the Zrath military fleet was surrendered. The story spread across the galaxy. Brandon's report was viewed billions of times. The footage of the battle, the interviews with colonists, and Admiral Mitchell's cold ultimatum became required viewing in diplomatic and military academies. A new understanding emerged about humanity. They were peaceful by preference, not by necessity. They preferred trade to war, negotiation to violence. But they were from Earth, a Class 12 Deathworld, and that meant they were more dangerous than they appeared. 3 months after the attack, the Mayflower finally reached New Terra. Earth Defense Force destroyers escorted the colony ship to its destination. Captain Marcus Hayes stood on the bridge as the planet appeared on the view screen. "There it is," he said quietly. "Our new home." Jake Morrison had repaired the engines, working alongside Navy engineers. "She's running better than before the attack. The military boys upgraded a few systems." Lisa Chen smiled at her communications panel. "And this time, I know which channels not to use accidentally." The colony ship entered orbit, and dropships began ferrying colonists to the surface. Amy Rodriguez organized the landing operations with the same efficiency she had shown during the crisis. Kevin Park and his security team, reinforced with proper weapons and training from Earth Marines, established a perimeter. Danny Cooper was among the first group to land. He stepped onto New Terra's soil and looked up at the sky. 3 Earth Defense Force destroyers orbited overhead, their presence a constant reminder that humanity protected its own. Michelle Torres set up the colony's first medical facility, her skills honed by the ordeal aboard the Mayflower. Tyler Bennett began planting the first crops, using knowledge of agriculture combined with survival instincts learned during the attack. Admiral Mitchell attended the colony's founding ceremony. He watched as Marcus raised the human flag, declaring New Terra officially settled. The colonists cheered, their voices carrying across the open plain. "They're remarkable people," Kate Sullivan said, standing beside Mitchell. "They're human," Mitchell replied. "They do what needs to be done." Back on Earth, Nicole Barnes continued analyzing the Zrath database. She coordinated with freed slaves from dozens of species, helping them return home or find new settlements. The data also revealed other empires operating similar systems. Earth began reaching out to them with a simple message: cease these operations or face consequences. Alex Carter and his squadron were awarded medals for their role in the rescue. At the ceremony, Alex thought about the battle, about how quickly it had ended. 8 minutes to destroy an enemy fleet. He wondered if the Zrath had understood what was happening before they died. Laura Kim returned to the Galactic Council with a new perspective. She had spent her career believing that all species were fundamentally similar, that conflicts arose from misunderstandings that diplomacy could solve. The Mayflower incident had taught her something different. Some species were predators, some were prey, and some, like humans, were predators who had learned to act like something else. She filed a report recommending significant changes to Council policy. "The assumption that all spacefaring species are equally dangerous is flawed," she wrote. Deathworld species possess inherent advantages in survival and combat. The Council must recognize this reality and adjust accordingly. Brandon Wells won awards for his reporting. His documentary about the Mayflower incident became required viewing in schools across human space. Children watched as Danny saved others through quick thinking. Future colonists studied how Marcus organized resistance. Military academies analyzed how Admiral Mitchell executed the rescue. The Zrath Empire, once mighty, became a cautionary tale. Throughout the galaxy, navigation charts were updated. Human space was marked with warnings. Ship captains learned a new rule. Do not threaten Deathworld species, especially humans. On New Terra, the colony grew. Buildings rose from the plains. Farms produced food. Children were born under an alien sky. The colonists never forgot what had happened, but they did not let it define them. They had survived. They had fought. They had been rescued. Now they built. Marcus stood on a hill overlooking the colony 1 year after landing. The settlement had grown beyond his expectations. Streets, houses, schools, and markets spread across the valley. In orbit, an Earth Defense Force destroyer maintained watch, a permanent guardian for the colony. Amy joined him, carrying a datapad with construction reports. We're ahead of schedule. The colony is thriving. We learned something aboard the Mayflower, Marcus said. We learned that we're stronger than we thought. When the crisis came, everyone stepped up. Scientists fought, teachers defended children, engineers created weapons from tools. We weren't soldiers, but we didn't have to be. Because we're human, Amy said. Marcus nodded. Because we're from Earth. Light years away, a Zrath navigation instructor taught young pilots about sector classifications. When the lesson reached human space, the instructor paused. This region is marked with a red warning, the instructor said. It indicates Deathworld territory. You are to avoid this space unless absolutely necessary. If you encounter humans, treat them with respect. Offer no threat. Remember the fate of Commander Vecthor's fleet. A young pilot raised a question. What happened to that fleet? The instructor's expression was grim. They attacked a human colony ship. The humans sent warships. The battle lasted 8 minutes. Every Zrath vessel was destroyed. That is what happens when you mistake human peaceful intentions for weakness. The lesson spread. Across the galaxy, species learned. Humans were traders, diplomats, explorers, and colonists. They preferred peace. They chose cooperation. But they were also warriors when necessary, products of a harsh world that had forged them in fire and gravity. The message was clear. The message was simple. The message was absolute. Do not threaten humanity's people. Do not mistake their kindness for weakness. Do not believe their peaceful nature means they cannot fight, because when you attack a human, you are not just attacking one person or one ship. You are attacking all of humanity, and humanity answers with fury unleashed. New Terra thrived under its alien sun, protected by the knowledge that Earth's fleet watched over it. The colonists built their lives, raised their children, and looked to the future. They had survived the worst. Everything else seemed easy by comparison. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, Earth's warships continued their patrol, silent guardians ensuring that what happened to the Mayflower would never happen again. They weren't ready for us, another replied. Nobody is. On the Mayflower, families reunited. Wounded were treated. The dead were counted and mourned. 18 colonists had been killed in the initial attack. Dozens more were injured. But they had survived. They had fought back, and they had been rescued. Kevin stood in what remained of the security office, looking at the wall where his team roster had been posted. 3 of his people were dead. He had failed to protect them, but he had protected everyone else. He had organized resistance when the aliens thought they were beaten. Marcus found him there. Kevin, the Admiral wants to speak with you. Kevin followed Marcus to the cargo bay, where Mitchell was addressing a gathered crowd of colonists. The Admiral's voice carried clear and strong. "What happened here should never have happened. You were attacked by an empire that preys on the weak. But you are not weak. You fought them with courage and determination. You survived, and now Earth knows about the Zrath Empire. We will make sure they never do this again." The colonists cheered, tired voices raised in defiance and relief. They had been victims, they had been prisoners, but they had never been defeated, and now they were going home. The human ships went dark, using the system's natural interference to mask their approach. They moved through the asteroid field like sharks through deep water, silent and deadly. Alex and his squadron launched from their carrier, their fighters' engines running cold. They drifted toward the enemy fleet, riding the momentum of their launch. The Zrath sensors were focused on the colony ship, watching for any escape attempts. They did not think to look outward. Mitchell watched the range close. 5 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 1 kilometer. The Zrath still had not detected them. "All ships," Mitchell said calmly. "Weapons free. Show them what happens when you threaten humanity." Amy Rodriguez knelt beside him, her face bruised. "What happens now?" she whispered. "We survive," Marcus replied quietly. "We wait for a chance, and we don't give up." Around them, Zrath warriors began moving colonists toward the airlocks. The humans would be transferred to the warships, processed and prepared for sale. Commander Vector's empire had been built on such conquests. He had no reason to think this time would be different. He was wrong. 3 weeks of calm travel awaited them before the Zrath would arrive. 3 weeks of ordinary life aboard a colony ship, where the biggest concerns were equipment maintenance and meal schedules. The colonists had no idea that they had been marked as prey, that 5 warships were racing toward them with capture and slavery in mind. Marcus stood in his quarters that night, looking at a picture of Earth on his wall. He had been born in Oregon, near the coast. He remembered the smell of the ocean and the sound of waves. New Terra would be different, but it would be home. He allowed himself to imagine the colony in 5 years, in 10 years. Cities growing, farms producing food, children being born under a new sky. He did not imagine warships. He did not imagine battle. He was a colony captain, not a warrior. That was about to change.